All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to another explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating content universe from a hugely popular platform called Alux.com. Now, they position themselves as an authority on luxury, fine living, and wealth creation. But what makes their stuff so compelling isn't just the flashy cars or the massive mansions. It's actually how they bridge the gap between the psychology of success, everyday microeconomics, and hard global data. We're going to explore this entire spectrum today, pulling directly from their most thought-provoking concepts to see exactly how modern wealth is built, maintained, and of course, spent.
Okay, let's dive into this bold statement. The place where future billionaires come to get inspired. I mean, that's not just a catchy tagline, right? It's a full-on mission statement. The source material we're looking at is entirely structured around pushing human potential to its absolute limits, catering to a community of really ambitious people. It's all about shifting your paradigm from everyday thinking to the high-level strategic mindset you need for massive wealth accumulation.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the future billionaire mindset, then look at the rules for modern success, explore the middle-class divide, check out the global cost of living, and finally, see what 1 million buys. Part 1. The future billionaire mindset, building that foundation. Before we even look at massive global wealth or real estate portfolios, the source material places a huge emphasis on internal psychology. Because, let's be real, you can't manage millions if you can't even manage your own mindset. A major pillar of this is their Sunday motivational videos. Everything is intentionally broken down into these systematic numbered lists, 15 ways to make $1 million, 15 brutal truths, 15 rules to win at life. High achievers absolutely thrive on systems and actionable data. By breaking complex life philosophies into numbered rules, it lets you systematically audit your own life. Now, take a look at this specific title pulled from their catalog. Your first $100,000 isn't about money. This is an absolutely crucial concept we need to focus on today. Why does reaching that first major financial milestone matter beyond just the cash? Well, according to the principles outlined here, accumulating your first $100,000 is actually a massive test of character. It's about the person you literally have to become to generate and retain that capital. You're developing unshakable habits, learning financial literacy, mastering the discipline to save, and figuring out how to invest when you have almost zero margin for error. The resilience you build reaching that first 100K, that becomes the exact foundational operating system you'll use to eventually manage millions. The cash is just a byproduct of the newly upgraded you. Moving right along to part 2, rules for modern success and how those strategies are evolving. Once you've got that foundation, you need the right playbook. But a question that keeps popping up in the source data is this: which success rules no longer work? It's a great prompt because it forces us to challenge our preconceived notions. Are we operating on an outdated financial playbook? Actually, scratch that. It's more like realizing that traditional advice, like just going to school, getting a safe job, and parking money in a low-yield savings account, might literally be keeping you poor in an age of rapid inflation and technological disruption. So let's see how this builds into their new playbook for modern success. We can distill a lot of their expansive catalog into 3 progressive steps. Step 1, start a business. Escape the pure wage earner trap by understanding the mechanics of business creation. Step 2 introduces a much more complex concept, and that is leverage. They have content specifically exploring how the rich live on loans. They highlight that the wealthy don't just use their own cash, they strategically use debt to acquire income-producing assets without triggering massive tax events. And step 3 is all about looking forward, identifying the trends that will generate wealth over the next 10 years. You know the old saying, you've got to skate to where the puck is going, not where it's been. Which brings us to part 3, the middle class divide, a shifting reality. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark socioeconomic trend it highlights. The community makes a profoundly simple observation. The traditional middle class, it's dissolving. Instead, it's being entirely split into 2 distinct diverging groups: renters and owners. And we're not just talking about housing here. It's about who owns the assets, the businesses, and the intellectual property, versus who is perpetually paying just to access those things. It's a very sobering, neutral analysis of exactly where wealth is concentrating today. To avoid falling onto the wrong side of that divide, to make that jump from renter to owner, you have to navigate some massive economic shifts. The source material tackles this head-on by constantly forecasting future trends. They focus on the specific industries poised to mint the next generation of millionaires, identifying the most profitable side hustles looking ahead to 2026, and analyzing broader economic forces. Basically, they're actively giving their audience the roadmap to transition into the ownership class.
Okay, part 4. Global cost of living and the microeconomy.
Let's ground all these high-level theories by shifting down to the everyday microeconomy. The source actually polled its global audience on the cost of a basic men's haircut in capital cities, and the data is wild. In Norway, a standard haircut will set you back almost $65. Japan is $56 and Denmark is over $48. This clearly illustrates the massive premium attached to living in highly developed economies. High wages and strong social safety nets naturally mean incredibly high costs for basic everyday services.
And this brilliantly illustrates the flip side, the sheer scale of global disparity. Look at the other end of the spectrum. In Zambia, that exact same service costs $1.65. No way, right? In Nigeria, $1.83. Argentina, just over $3. To put that into perspective, it's the exact same human labor and skill, but it yields vastly different monetary value purely based on geographical borders. Grasping these massive global disparities is absolutely key to understanding how global wealth flows.
Finally, part 5, what 1 million buys. Let's scale up to the macroeconomy of luxury. $1 million. It is the classic benchmark of success, isn't it? But looking at the modern wealth landscape, we really have to pause and ask, what does $1 million actually mean today? Is it still the golden ticket to an opulent lifestyle everywhere in the world? Or has inflation and wealth concentration completely changed the math? Let's walk through this Knight Frank wealth report data on prime real estate. If you take that $1 million to Monaco, it buys you a whopping 16 square meters of property. That's essentially the size of a single parking space. In New York, you get 34 square meters, Paris 40. But take that exact same million to Dubai and you secured 91 square meters. In Mumbai, over 100 square meters. Wealth is entirely relative to your location. $1 million makes you royalty in some markets and barely gets you a studio apartment in others. But for the ultra-wealthy, it's really not just about hoarding prime property. A huge portion of this catalog focuses on the exclusive experiences that define true luxury living. We're talking about dropping 15 grand a night to stay in the #1 hotel in the world, getting private tours of $21 million wine collections, or hanging out at exclusive 9th-generation Italian wineries. At the very highest levels of wealth, money completely stops being a tool for survival and transforms into a tool for acquiring rare, totally irreplicable human experiences. And how do people reach the level where they can effortlessly afford those experiences? By spotting cultural trends way before anyone else does. I absolutely love this insight from the community. Video games IP is the new comic book IP. Just think about it. Comic book intellectual property dominated the box office and generated billions for the last 2 decades. The argument here is that the next wave of massive wealth will flow from video game franchises, making that jump into mainstream media. Spotting these cultural shifts early, that's the absolute core of the billionaire mindset we talked about at the very beginning. So we've traveled from the internal mindset required to make your first 100,000 all the way to global property markets and multi-million-dollar wine collections. I want to leave you with this final, provocative question directly inspired by everything we've looked at today. Which economic forces are shaping your future? Are you positioning yourself as a renter or an owner? Take a hard look at the trends happening around you, audit your own habits, and ask yourself how you are preparing for the economy of tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you in the owner's class.